Good morning. It's really great to be with you today. I'm excited about our Bible study topic, also a tiny bit intimidated, because we're going to talk about one of the most interesting and terrifying passages, at least for women, in Scripture. And this is the Proverbs 31 woman. Oh, please don't leave yet. Hang in there, girls. It's going to be good. But before we get to that, I want to invite you to be a part of something exciting that we're doing at St. Andrews. There's going to be a half-day retreat. Now, we can all carve out half a day, right? A half-day retreat at the church, socially distanced, very safe. Bring your masks. And it's just going to be wonderful. It's going to be on November 14th from 8:30 to 12 noon. And it'll be in the plaza. I really encourage you to come and bring one of your girlfriends with you, maybe a daughter, a mother, a neighbor. It'll be a great introduction, and what a way to prepare for the holiday seasons coming up. We're going to be in the Psalms. We have a great speaker coming to work with us, and I've already registered. I hope you will too. It's only $15, and scholarships are available. And if you look at your screen, you'll see some information about how to register. You could just call the church or you can go online. I encourage you to register and encourage you to register by November 10th because they're only taking a limited number of women, so to maintain the best safe environment that we can have and make sure we have materials for everybody. So please do that. Now, again, by November 10th. Go online, do it. Pause this recording if you have to. Go online, do it. All right. If you're anything like me, you have a love-hate relationship with Proverbs 31. You may have gone to retreats, read books, had people preach to you pretty much every Mother's Day. This is the safe passage for most pastors on Proverbs 31. And this description of a wife of a noble character can be very daunting. It can be intimidating. It can be confusing. It can be, frankly, overwhelming. I mean, she's the kind of woman that makes Martha Stewart feel insecure. She's the kind of woman that not only puts up a Pinterest board, but people copy pin everything from her Pinterest board into their Pinterest boards. And if you don't know what a Pinterest board is, don't worry. It's the latest thing to make us all feel insecure. She's not only the kind of woman that has crafts and recipes and collects them, but she does them. She invents them. And she has people who copy her. I don't like this woman. I don't like her. I feel very little compared to the Proverbs 31 woman. She intimidates the heck out of me. Maybe you too. Oh my goodness. And yet, if you've spent time in your head thinking, I can never live up to this. My circumstances are different. My gifts are different. I can't be a morning person and an evening person like she is. Well, let me encourage you. That's not what the passage is about. On the contrary, this could be one of the most encouraging and life-building passages. It could be one that we use to encourage other women, not to measure ourselves against other women. So please do that. Will you join with me as I share some good news with you? I'm going to read Proverbs chapter 31, verse 10 to 31 first. And while I do, I'd like you to see something that was given to me on my first anniversary. Danger, danger. It's a cross stitch. A cross stitch that describes the Proverbs 31 woman. And I want you to know, to make this even more intimidating, this was given to me by my dear, sweet, well-meaning husband. Yes, I've stayed with him for 34 years now, so I guess it worked. But I'll show you some close-ups of that cross-stitch as we read. The wife of noble character. Who can find? She's worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like a merchant ship who brings her food from afar. She gets up while it's still dark. She provides food for her family and portions for her servant girls. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously, and her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers, and opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for the household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She's clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate. He takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the reward she's earned, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. Oh dear, are you still with me? I'm so glad. Because first of all, our confusion about Proverbs 31, like most passages that have been misinterpreted, is around basically three issues. One, genre or literature. What style of literature are we looking at, and how does that influence how we interpret it? Two, audience. For whom was this passage written? And again, how does that influence how we hear it today? And three, language. What did the original Hebrew in which this passage was written, what did the original Hebrew mean when it was read then? And what does it mean, therefore, for us today? If you keep these three things in mind as we talk about Proverbs 31, it will open your eyes to some things that, well, frankly, you may not have considered before. First of all, the style of literature. Proverbs 31 is a poem. It is written as a poem, not a prescription. The subject of our 22-line poem is found in the last chapter of the book of Proverbs, a woman or a wife of noble character. It's meant to be a tangible expression of all the things we've talked about already about wisdom, because the book of Proverbs is about wisdom. So this kind of sums up everything we've been looking at, and it epitomizes it in the life of one woman. The author's essentially showing us what wisdom looks like in real life, or in action, or as a person. The poem is also an acrostic. Acrostic. It's a good word to know. The first word of each verse begins with a letter from the Hebrew alphabet in succession. Perhaps you remember one of your first ventures into poetry. I do. I was in 3rd grade, and we were making a Mother's Day card. And the Mother's Day card had on it a poem by Howard Johnson, Mother. M is for the million things she gave me. O means only that she's growing old. I'm not sure my mother liked that. T is for the tears she shed to save me. H is for her heart of purest gold. E is for her eyes with love light shining. R means right, and right shall always be. She might have liked that. Put them all together, they spell mother, a word that means the world to me. In this poem, like an acrostic poem, the first line begins with a letter, and in this case, a letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Of course, that doesn't come across in the English translations, but it's important for us to know that this style is used. Why? Why would it matter? Well, because by using all the letters in the Hebrew alphabet, we have something that's easily memorized by those who read it in their original language, number one. Number two, it symbolizes completeness. Every letter is covered. And 3, it praises everyday achievements, the A to Z of life, or in this case, the Aleph to Tau. The simple things, the quotidian things, the things that don't usually get noticed and don't usually get observed. Things about a woman managing her household and the standards of that day, buying and selling and weaving and sewing and cooking and providing, managing her staff, things that women did every day in the average Hebrew home. So like every good poem, the purpose of this poem is to draw attention to something that might have been overlooked, to have us see something with new eyes, to see the glory of everyday little things that keep homes and communities running, and to see behind those things and those actions to the character that makes them happen. As a poem, Proverbs 31 should not be interpreted as a prescription or a job description for a woman, especially a woman today. Its purpose is to celebrate wisdom in action, not to instruct women everywhere to live the identical life to a woman in the ancient Hebrew traditions. We are not called to live like nomadic women 800 years before Jesus or more. We are called to live faithfully with wisdom today. Number 2, the target audience of Proverbs 31. Now, maybe this went right by you. It sure went by me, because everything I've ever heard has been for women. Books for women on how to be a Proverbs 31 woman. Lectures for women on how to do this. Bible studies. It just ad infinitum. Everything's been given to me. But do you notice, if you read the first few verses of Proverbs, that this was not a checklist for aspiring wives. Instead, it's a teaching given by a woman to her son. A mother is telling her son, these are characteristics of a noble woman. And it's a poem taught to her. In fact, today in Orthodox Jewish communities, men still memorize this poem, and they use it to praise their wives, on the Sabbath especially. It's intended to guide a man not only to what he should look for, but the kind of virtues that lie underneath the actions for which he should praise his wife. It's to remind husbands not to take the everyday work of a woman for granted. And believe me, there's some that still need that reminder. In fact, the only command in the poem is directed to the poem's intended male audience. Praise her for what her hands have done. That's the only command, that's the only instruction. It's given to a man about the woman in his life. Proverbs 31 doesn't just say home-based things or activities are things to be praised, or that you have to live the life of an ancient woman to be praised. Now it's often used as a way to praise a certain culture or a certain way of living, instead of praising the characteristics of a faithful, God-fearing, God-honoring woman who seeks to serve her family and her culture in the unique circumstances in which she finds herself. This, I believe, misses the point of Proverbs 31 by a mile. Thirdly, Proverbs 31 celebrates not actions, but character. Notice the first line of Proverbs 31 poem goes, a virtuous woman who can find. This could best be translated, a woman of noble character who can be found. Who can find. Having a noble character in whatever circumstances or callings you pursue is more important than achieving success in the world's eyes. That's what makes you a Proverbs 31 woman, not creating a life worthy of Pinterest or Instagram or the admiration of your neighborhood. How do we celebrate the noble character of the women in our lives? Do we compliment our daughters and granddaughters about what they do or about who they are? There's a difference. Do we notice accomplishments that took courage, stick-to-itiveness, stamina, hard work, and virtue? Or do we only notice those things that appeal to a materialistic culture? Oh, your hair looks really good today. Not that I mind hearing that, and you wouldn't either. But is that all we notice about people? Is that all we see, the things that are on the outside? We should look deeply for noble character. We should compliment friends and family members on their hearts, on their virtues. Our heroes should be women of noble character. The other Proverbs 31 woman is found in Scripture. Do you know there's another woman who's also called a woman of noble character? And you won't be surprised, perhaps, to find out that woman who got that praise is Ruth. And yet, Ruth was a destitute foreigner who worked as a day laborer, gathering, threshing, and winnowing wheat on somebody else's field, basically harvesting leftovers. She was not a success in the eyes of her culture. She wasn't even Hebrew. She was a foreigner. For most of the story, she's neither a wife nor a mother. She has achieved no success in the eyes of the world. She did not manage a large household with a staff. She did not make clothes for her family. She did not have a husband who sat in the gates, not till the end of the story. Ruth, yet a childless, unmarried woman who didn't spend her days selling fine linens, who worked in the hot sun, who risked abuse of other laborers in order to provide for her mother-in-law, someone for whom she was not even obligated to provide. That was the only charity that she could do. But she did that. That's Ruth. And yet, guess what Boaz says to Ruth before she gets married, before she has a child, before she achieves any measure of wealth or influence in her community? He says, all the people in town know that you are a woman of noble character. Yes, Boaz uses the same words, a woman of noble character, that are used in Hebrew in Proverbs 31 to describe our woman. The same words, a woman of noble character. Ruth is identified as a woman of noble character not because she checked off some list, a to-do list to achieve the status, but because she lived her life with incredible bravery, with wisdom, with charity, and with strength. She lived her life with noble character. Boaz didn't focus on her housekeeping. Boaz didn't focus on her skills, or he didn't focus on her position in society. Instead, her role was not used to define her, but the integrity and the bravery and the compassion she brought to her circumstances were the things that defined her. She was a woman who feared the Lord. She was a woman of noble character. You don't have to turn to Proverbs 31 to find women of noble character. They're all through Scripture. You can turn to Sarah or Deborah or Esther in the Old Testament, or Mary Magdalene or Mary of Bethany or Martha or Tabitha or Dorcas or, oh my goodness, the prophetess Huldah or Junia the apostle. These are women of noble character. And you can turn to women of noble character in your life and around the world who are bringing their gifts, their talents, their experiences, their passions, and their obedience to God, their worship of God, to serve in the communities in which they're located. It doesn't matter if they're single or married or how much money they have or how beautiful they are in the world's eyes. This is not what makes a woman of noble character. This is not what makes a Proverbs 31 woman. So let's take some time in your small group. I encourage you to talk about what in each other is noble. What do you see in the women around you that make you say, she is a woman of noble character. I could do very well to emulate her. Use your imagination. Use the eyes the Lord has given you. Encourage each other. And let's rise up and call each other blessed. So I hope in this time, as we've looked at a few things about Proverbs 31, you're willing to reconsider it with new eyes. You're willing to look at it as something that encourages you to be the woman God calls you to be, not the woman the community says you should be, not the woman you were raised to be, not the woman the circumstances that are beyond your control have made so that you cannot be. But how are you now in your life being and becoming a woman of noble character? I love you, girls. I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. Oh, I am. I really am praying for that. And I hope you have a wonderful discussion. Bye-bye.